Buyology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy by Martin Lindstrom. Ever walked out of a store, glanced at your shopping bag, and wondered, what just happened here? That thing wasn't on your list. You didn't really need it, yet somehow, standing in that store, it felt absolutely essential. Sound familiar? We all like to think we're rational people, making smart choices based on price, quality, and actual need. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That's mostly fiction. A comforting story we tell ourselves, while something much older and more powerful is actually calling the shots. Picture this, a group of smokers in a London lab staring at those horrifying warning labels on cigarette packs. You know the ones. Blackened lungs, diseased gums, the works. When asked if these images make them want to smoke less, they all nod vigorously. Absolutely, they say. They genuinely believe it. Meanwhile, inside a $4 million brain scanner, their brains are singing a completely different tune. While they're looking at these warnings, a tiny region deep in their brains, the craving center, starts lighting up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Those warnings aren't discouraging them at all. They're actually triggering the desire to light up. This jaw-dropping discovery sits at the heart of one of the most ambitious marketing studies ever attempted. Over 3 years, at a cost of more than $7 million, Martin Lindstrom became a detective investigating the greatest mystery of all, the human mind. His investigation took him from corporate boardrooms to cutting-edge neuroscience labs, recruiting over 2,000 volunteers worldwide to have their brains scanned while making decisions. His mission? To uncover the hidden truths about what we really want, what secretly drives us, and what makes us reach for our wallets. The book that emerged from this journey, Buyology, isn't just about shopping habits. It's about the invisible forces that shape our entire lives. Today we're pulling back the curtain on his most fascinating findings. I'm going to show you the secrets hiding in your own brain, the invisible scripts running your decisions every single day. By the time we're done, you won't just understand why you buy things. You'll understand something fundamental about why you do almost everything. You'll see advertising, branding, and even your own desires in a completely new light. This isn't just a book summary. It's a journey into the hidden architecture of your mind. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. We're terrible witnesses to our own motivations. We're basically strangers in our own minds. For decades, companies have poured billions into market research, asking us what we want, what we like, what we'll buy. And for decades, they've been getting it spectacularly wrong. 8 out of every 10 new products launched in the United States crash and burn within months. Not because companies are stupid, but because they've been listening to what we say instead of watching what our brains actually do. Martin Lindstrom saw this disconnect everywhere. As a branding expert, he was the guy companies called when their products were tanking. He realized traditional research methods were like trying to understand the ocean by only looking at its surface. The real action, those deep, powerful currents, were completely hidden. He knew the answers weren't hiding in surveys or focus groups. They were buried in the 3 pounds of mysterious tissue between our ears. So he launched the largest neuromarketing study in history. His first target? The comforting myth that fear can change behavior. That experiment with smokers and warning labels was just the beginning. When smokers said the labels worked, they weren't lying. Their conscious thinking minds genuinely believed it. But their subconscious brains, the part running on instinct and pure craving, heard something completely different. Those gruesome images were so deeply connected to smoking that they accidentally triggered the exact behavior they were supposed to prevent. This single discovery sent shockwaves through both health organizations and advertising agencies. If scaring people with the truth doesn't work, what does? And it revealed the central drama of this entire book, the constant, silent war between our rational, modern brain and our ancient, emotional one. Spoiler alert, emotion almost always wins. Want proof? Let's talk about the legendary battle between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. For years, Pepsi ran the famous Pepsi Challenge, setting up tables in shopping malls for blind taste tests. The results were consistent. More than half the people preferred Pepsi's taste. It's slightly sweeter, and in a small sip, that sweetness wins every time. Logic says Pepsi should have dominated the market, but it didn't. Not even close. Coke has always been king. Why? Years later, a neuroscientist named Dr. Reed Montague recreated the experiment with an fMRI machine watching. In the blind test, just like the original Pepsi challenge, people's brains showed more reward activity for Pepsi. Then Dr. Montague changed the game. He ran the test again, but this time he told people which brand they were drinking beforehand. Suddenly, everything flipped. 3/4 of people now claimed they preferred Coke, and their brain scans backed it up. It wasn't just the taste center lighting up anymore. A whole new region activated, the medial prefrontal cortex, the part handling higher thinking, memory, and emotion. What happened? In that split second, participants' brains got flooded with a lifetime of Coca-Cola associations. That iconic red can. The classic logo. Commercials with polar bears and heartwarming music. Childhood memories of sharing a Coke with family. All that positive emotional baggage, the entire cultural weight of Coke, completely overpowered the simple fact that their taste buds preferred Pepsi. Coke wasn't just a drink anymore. It was an identity, a feeling. And in the marketplace, feelings outsell flavor every single time. This proves something crucial. When we buy something, we're not just buying a product. We're buying a story, complete with all the emotions and memories our brain has filed away about that brand over years. Scientists call these mental shortcuts somatic markers. They're like bookmarks our brain creates based on past experiences, good and bad. Remember touching a hot stove as a kid? The pain, the shock, maybe some tears. Your brain created a powerful somatic marker, instantly connecting hot stove with danger. You don't need to think about it anymore. Your gut reaction keeps you safe automatically. The exact same thing happens with brands. Every ad you see, every jingle you hear, every experience with a product creates tiny emotional bookmarks in your mind. Standing in the supermarket aisle, your brain doesn't run a lengthy logical analysis of all your options. It does a lightning-fast scan of those somatic markers, looking for the one triggering the most positive feelings and fewest negative ones. You reach for Jif peanut butter not because you've studied its nutritional content, but because your brain whispers that old slogan, "Choosy mothers choose Jif," and you feel a warm echo of care and quality. You choose an Audi not because you understand what Vorsprung durch Technik means, but because your brain connects German language with precision engineering and reliability. These aren't conscious thoughts. They're gut feelings, powered by a vast invisible library of somatic markers. Companies know this, obviously. They spend billions trying to create positive markers in our brains. Sometimes, the connections they create are bizarre, even shocking, because shocking things stick. Take Blendtec, a company that sells blenders. How do you make a blender memorable? Their founder, Tom Dixon, started a video series called Will It Blend? In each episode, he takes something highly desirable, like an iPhone or golf clubs, and drops it into his blender. He hits the button, and in a storm of noise and destruction, the object gets pulverized into dust. It's absurd, it's almost violent, and it's completely unforgettable. The video plants a shocking, powerful, somatic marker in your brain, connecting Blendtec with incredible, indestructible power. Next time you're shopping for a blender, you might not consciously remember the ad, but your brain has that bookmark. That little jolt of wow might be all it takes to influence your choice. This brings us to one of the most powerful ways brands build emotional connections, weaving themselves into stories. We saw how Coke's lifetime of stories beat Pepsi's superior taste. But what happens when that story is unfolding right now, on your TV screen? Welcome to the world of product placement. Companies spend billions getting their products into movies and TV shows. But does it actually work? Lindstrom decided to find out, using one of the biggest shows on the planet, American Idol. During his study, American Idol had 3 main sponsors: Coca-Cola, Singular Wireless, now AT&T, and Ford. Each paid over $26 million yearly for the privilege, but they used completely different strategies. Ford went traditional, running standard 30-second commercials during breaks. In these ads, contestants would wash a Ford or pile into one while singing. Coke and Singular, however, were woven directly into the show's fabric. Judges drank from large red Coca-Cola cups. Contestants sat on couches, designed with the subtle curves of a Coke bottle. The waiting room where they celebrated or cried was painted unmistakable Coke red. Singular was integrated too, with the host constantly reminding viewers they could vote using their Singular phones. So which strategy worked better? Lindstrom brought hundreds of volunteers into the lab, fitted them with brainwave measuring caps, and had them watch the show. Before and after, he flashed sponsor logos, along with random brands, measuring brain memory retention. The results were stunning. Not only were Coke and Singular far more memorable than Ford, but something truly bizarre happened. After watching the show, viewers' memory of Ford commercials had actually decreased. Coke's constant, subtle presence was so powerful, it crowded Ford completely out of people's brains. Ford had spent $26 million to become less memorable. A multi-million-dollar disaster. The lesson was crystal clear: for a product to stick in our minds, it can't just appear in a commercial, it has to be part of the story. When we see contestants happily washing a car in an ad, our brain knows it's an ad. The wall goes up, we tune out. But when we see judges sipping from a Coke cup while crushing a young singer's dreams, Coke becomes part of the drama. It's integrated into the emotional narrative of hope, victory, and defeat. Our brain doesn't register it as advertising, it sees it as part of that world's reality. Because it's part of the story, it slips past our defenses and gets hardwired into memory. This powerful instinct we have to engage with stories, to feel what characters feel, to connect with their journey, isn't just a quirk of human nature. It's the result of one of modern neuroscience's most profound discoveries, and it all started, strangely enough, with a monkey and an ice cream cone. In the 1990s, scientists in Parma, Italy, were studying macaque monkey brains. They had electrodes monitoring a specific brain region that fired when a monkey performed an action, like reaching for a peanut. One hot afternoon, a graduate student walked back into the lab after lunch, holding an ice cream cone. As he lifted it to take a lick, the monitor connected to the monkey's brain suddenly went wild. But the monkey hadn't moved. It was just sitting there, watching. The scientists were stunned. They'd discovered a special class of brain cells they named mirror neurons. These neurons fire not only when we perform an action, but also when we simply observe someone else performing that same action. When you watch a soccer player score a goal, your mirror neurons fire as if you kicked the ball. When you see a movie character start crying, your mirror neurons make you feel a shadow of their sadness. It's the brain's way of simulating others' experiences. It's the foundation of empathy, of learning, and, as it turns out, of our desire to buy. Mirror neurons explain why we're social creatures, why we follow trends, and why we unconsciously imitate people around us. Years ago, Steve Jobs was walking down a New York City street and saw them everywhere, the iconic white headphones of the iPod. He said, "Oh my God, it's starting to happen." He was witnessing mirror neurons at work on a massive scale. People saw those cool white earphones on others. Their brains simulated being part of that tribe, and desire was born. I want that too. I want to be like them. This is the secret engine behind so much advertising. When we see a model looking slim and confident in jeans, our mirror neurons let us mentally try on not just the jeans, but the feeling of confidence. When we play Guitar Hero, our brain gives us a taste of being a rock star. We aren't just buying an object, we're buying an identity, a feeling. That feeling gets amplified by a powerful brain chemical, dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of anticipation and reward. When you see something you desire, New sneakers, a shiny phone, your brain releases a little hit of dopamine. It's a pleasure rush, a promise of future happiness. That dopamine surge creates that intense, "I need this now" impulse. It's so addictive it can completely override rational thinking. As one Harvard economist puts it, our emotional brain wants to max out the credit card, even though our logical brain knows we should save for retirement. Lindstrom points to Abercrombie and Fitch as masters of using both mirror neurons and dopamine. They place huge posters of young, impossibly attractive, half-naked models at store entrances. As a teenager walks by, mirror neurons fire up. They imagine being part of that cool, popular, attractive group. Then they step inside. The store's designed like a dark, loud nightclub. The air is thick with signature cologne. Salespeople look like they stepped out of the posters. Before touching a single shirt, their brain is already sold on the feeling, the identity. Heading to checkout, dopamine levels are soaring with purchase anticipation. They're not just buying a t-shirt, they're buying a ticket into that tribe, a shot of cool. This deep, primal desire to belong and imitate is powerful. But what about messages we don't even consciously see? This leads us to the shadowy world of subliminal advertising. The subliminal advertising legend began in 1957, when market researcher James Vickery claimed he'd flashed "eat popcorn and drink Coca-Cola" for fractions of a second during a movie. He said popcorn sales jumped nearly 60%. The public panicked. The idea that hidden messages could control minds sparked national fear. The only problem? Vickery later admitted he made it all up. The experiment never happened. But even though the original story was a hoax, Lindstrom's research revealed that a more sophisticated, far more powerful form of subliminal messaging is very real and constantly being used. Again, he focused on the tobacco industry. With traditional advertising banned in most countries, cigarette companies have become masters of unseen messaging. Lindstrom brought smokers back into the fMRI scanner. This time, he didn't show them cigarette packs or logos. Instead, he showed them images associated with cigarette brands, but containing no explicit branding. He showed rugged cowboys on horseback against wide-open western landscapes, the essence of the Marlboro Man. He showed camels walking through desert sunsets. He even showed bright red Ferrari race cars, because for years Marlboro had been a major Ferrari Formula One racing sponsor. Not a single logo or cigarette appeared. But smokers' brains reacted instantly. That same craving spot, the nucleus accumbens, lit up with intense desire. In fact, the brain scans revealed something truly mind-blowing. These indirect, subliminal images triggered more craving than looking at an actual Marlboro pack or the brand logo. How is this possible? Because when we see an explicit ad, our conscious mind puts up defenses. We know we're being sold something. We think, smoking is bad, I should quit. But when we see a beautiful sunset or powerful race car, our defenses are down. The message slips past our rational gatekeeper and speaks directly to our subconscious, activating all the positive associations, freedom, masculinity, power, coolness, that tobacco companies spent decades carefully building. It's chillingly effective, and it proves the most powerful advertising isn't what we see, but what we feel. The logo isn't king, the association is. This power of association extends beyond images. It's deeply woven into our daily habits and rituals. Think about drinking a Corona. What do? You squeeze a lime into it. Feels like an authentic, time-honored tradition from Mexico, right? But the truth is, that ritual was invented in 1981 by a U.S. bartender on a bet to see if he could start a trend. He did. And that simple, invented ritual is credited with helping Corona overtake Heineken as America's top imported beer. Or think about pouring a Guinness. There's the slow, two-part pour, the patient wait for the creamy head to settle. Feels like a sacred tradition honoring the craft. But in the 1990s, Guinness was losing sales because customers didn't want to wait so long, so the company turned a negative into a positive. They launched a brilliant campaign with the slogan, "Good things come to those who wait." They transformed the delay into a ritual of anticipation, a mark of quality. These rituals matter. In a chaotic, uncertain world, they give us small moments of control, comfort, familiarity. And brands with associated rituals become stickier in our minds. When we twist open an Oreo or dunk it in milk, we're not just eating a cookie. We're participating in a shared cultural ritual. These actions forge emotional connections far deeper than taste. They make products feel like parts of our lives. As Lindstrom dug deeper into this world of ritual and belief, he started wondering how far this connection went. He noticed that how people talked about favorite brands, Apple, Harley-Davidson, Guinness, sounded a lot like how people talk about their faith. They spoke of loyalty, belonging, shared identity. They were evangelists for their chosen products. Could it be that our most powerful brands tap into the same deep psychological needs that religion serves? It was a provocative, even controversial idea. To test it, Lindstrom designed his most daring experiment yet. He brought volunteers who rated themselves as religious or spiritual into the brain scanner. He showed them a series of images. Some were powerful religious icons, a rosary, a cross, Mother Teresa, the Pope. Others were from strong, beloved brands, what Lindstrom calls smashable brands, meaning they're so iconic you could smash the product into 100 pieces and still recognize it. Brands like Apple, Harley-Davidson, and Ferrari. Finally, he showed images from weaker brands like Microsoft and BP. What they found was groundbreaking. When volunteers looked at strong brand images like the iPod or Ferrari, brain activity patterns were identical to patterns when looking at religious icons. The same areas associated with meaning, memory, and emotion lit up. In the brain, there was no difference between spiritual reverence for a rosary and brand reverence for an Apple product. Weak brands, however, activated completely different, less emotional brain areas. The experiment revealed that the world's most successful brands have become the new religions. They provide the 10 pillars almost all major faiths share: a sense of belonging, a clear vision, power over enemies, think Apple versus PC, sensory appeal, storytelling, grandeur, evangelism, symbols, mystery, and rituals. Apple isn't just a tech company, it's a belief system. Its stores are like temples. Product launches are like religious services with a charismatic leader, Steve Jobs as high priest. Its followers are a tribe of believers. Buying an Apple product isn't just a transaction, it's an affirmation of identity. This deep, almost spiritual connection is forged not just through ideas, but through our senses. For too long, marketers focused almost exclusively on our eyes, bombarding us with logos and visual ads. But Lindstrom's research shows our other senses, especially smell and sound, are often far more powerful. Our sense of smell is the most ancient and primal. It's the only sense that bypasses our brain's rational part and travels directly to emotional centers. A certain scent can transport you back to childhood instantly. Companies know this. That new car smell you love? It often comes from an aerosol can. The delicious bread baking aroma in supermarkets? It's sometimes pumped through vents from an artificial scent machine to make you feel hungry and buy more. One study found that when a faint floral scent was pumped into a room, people rated identical Nike sneakers as more valuable than the pair in an unscented room. Sound is equally powerful. Kellogg's famously hired a sound lab to engineer the perfect, signature crunch for its cornflakes. But sometimes, a signature sound can go terribly wrong. Consider Nokia. For years, its default ringtone was one of the planet's most recognizable sounds. You'd think this would be a huge brand asset. But Lindstrom was suspicious. He noticed that whenever he heard that tune, he felt anxious. So he tested it. In the lab, volunteers shown Nokia phone images registered positive brain responses. They liked the phones. But when researchers played the signature ringtone, a dramatic change occurred. Volunteers' brains showed strong negative emotional responses. Hearing that sound actually suppressed the positive feelings they had for the product. The sound, once novel and cool, had become a powerful negative somatic marker. Our brains linked it to 1,000 interruptions, calls from the boss during dinner, phones ringing in quiet movie theaters, the stress of being constantly available. That iconic sound was actually killing the brand. This discovery highlights the delicate, often invisible dance between a brand and our subconscious mind. A single sensory input can make or break our emotional connection. So, after all this exploration into hidden corners of the consumer mind, one big question remains. If traditional market research is so flawed, can this new science of neuromarketing actually do what every company dreams of? Can it predict the future? Can it tell if a product will be a hit or flop before it even launches? For the final experiment, Lindstrom's team was hired to test the pilot for a new TV game show called Quizmania. It was loud, chaotic, and, to many, obnoxious. The researchers gathered 200 volunteers. First, they filled out a traditional questionnaire about whether they liked the show and would watch it. Then they watched the show while wearing SST brain scanning caps. The questionnaire results were brutal. Volunteers hated Quizmania. They found it annoying and stupid. They said they'd never, ever watch it. Based on traditional research, the show was guaranteed to fail. But once again, their brains told a different story. The SST scans showed that while watching Quizmania, their brains were highly engaged. They were more engaged with Quizmania than with another show they claimed to like much more. Their conscious minds were full of judgment and criticism, but their subconscious brains were captivated by the fast pace and drama. Based on the brain scans, Lindstrom's team made a prediction. Despite what surveys said, Quizmania would be a moderate success. And when the show aired in the UK and other countries, that's exactly what happened. Their brains had accurately predicted the show's future, even when their words had lied. The implications are enormous. Neuromarketing could save companies hundreds of millions by preventing flops like New Coke or the Segway. But more importantly, it holds up a mirror to ourselves. It shows us that what we think we want and what truly captures our attention are often two very different things. Finally, we come to the topic advertising has used for over a century: sex. Does it really sell? The research suggests a surprising answer: not really, and often not at all. Yes, sexual imagery grabs our attention, but it often grabs too much attention. Researchers call it the vampire effect. The sexy content is like a vampire that sucks the life out of the brand message. In studies where people were shown ads with suggestive content, their eyes were glued to the models, but they couldn't remember the brand or product being sold. Their memory was actually worse than for non-sexual ads. So why is it everywhere? Because while sex itself may not sell, controversy does. Brands like Calvin Klein and American Apparel built empires by pushing boundaries. The public outrage, the media coverage, the free publicity, all that noise made the brand famous. The real product they were selling was the controversy. But what really works at a deeper level is our brain's desire for beauty and our instinct to imagine a better version of ourselves. That's the power of mirror neurons again. We see an attractive person and imagine being them. That's why Dove's campaign for real beauty, which used ordinary women instead of supermodels, was so successful. Viewers could genuinely see themselves in the ads. The connection felt authentic. And in an increasingly artificial world, authenticity is what our brains crave most. The future of advertising may not be about overt sex, but about creating real, relatable stories that allow us to see the best versions of ourselves. As we step back from this fascinating journey into our own minds, what do we take away? Martin Lindstrom's Buyology is more than just clever marketing tricks. It's a profound look at the human condition. It reveals that beneath our thin veneer of rationality, we're creatures of emotion, instinct, and deep-seated desires we're barely aware of. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the humility this knowledge brings. It's humbling to realize that so much of what we do, from choosing a soda brand to our response to public health messages, is guided by invisible forces. Our brains run on ancient software, developed for a survival world, not a world of shopping malls and online ads. And modern marketers have become incredibly skilled at speaking that ancient brain's language. This doesn't mean we're helpless puppets. Actually, the opposite is true. By understanding these subconscious triggers, we gain a new level of control. This book acts as a sort of inoculation. When you walk into a store now and smell that enticing fresh-baked cookie aroma, you can pause and ask yourself, is that smell real? Or is it designed to make me hungry? When you see an ad playing on your insecurities, you can recognize the strategy and choose not to let it affect you. When you feel an irrational pull toward a certain brand, you can smile, knowing the complex web of somatic markers and mirror neurons at play in your own mind. Knowledge in this case truly is power. It's the power to be a more conscious consumer, a more aware citizen, and a more self-aware human being. So here are a few simple things you can do, starting today, to apply these lessons. First, become an observer of your own impulses. Next time you feel a strong urge to buy something unplanned, just pause. Don't judge it, just notice it. Ask yourself, what triggered this? Was it an image? A sound? A smell? A feeling of wanting to belong? Simply observing the process can begin to break its hold on you. Second, question the story. Every successful brand is selling a story. Apple sells creativity and rebellion. Nike sells victory and perseverance. Coca-Cola sells happiness and connection. Next time you're drawn to a product, ask yourself, what story is this brand telling me? And is that a story I truly want to buy into? Separating the product from its narrative can give you incredible clarity. And third, engage your senses consciously. Since we know our senses are powerful gateways to our emotions, use them to your advantage. Notice how different environments make you feel. The calming effect of one store, the frantic energy of another. By paying attention to how sights, sounds, and smells affect your mood, you become the master of your own emotional state, rather than a passive recipient of a marketer's carefully designed experience. Buyology doesn't give us a map to the buy button in the brain, because one doesn't exist. Instead, it gives us something far more valuable, a mirror. A mirror reflecting the hidden workings of our own minds, allowing us to see ourselves and the world constantly trying to influence us with newfound wisdom. That was a summary of Buyology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy, by Martin Lindstrom. We've touched on major discoveries from his groundbreaking research today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you read the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or simple phrase hits you in an unexpected way. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, I truly encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself and the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this journey into the mind valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration of another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.